Welcome to LollieTasking with ADHD. I am your host, Dr. Lollie, a multi-passionate mom of three, a physician, and an ADHD life coach because, like most of you amazing women listening, I have ADHD. Join me as we chat about how ADHD affects our lives and learn strategies to help us all thrive, not just survive, with ADHD so we can live the life we want while accomplishing all our goals. Let's get started. Welcome to LollieTasking with ADHD. Again, I am Dr. Lollie, a physician and an ADHD trained life coach for easily distracted women like myself who are just tired of being stuck in a stagnant state of busyness. And you know what? They are ready to get on their productive momentum. Hello, welcome. So, if you've been listening to my podcast and this is not the first time you've been here and you've loved what you've heard so far, I need you to go ahead and leave an amazing review for us. Go ahead and drop that 5-star. Go ahead and subscribe to our podcast. And you know what? Why don't you do me one more thing? Go ahead and share with your friends, because the more we share, the more we get this to other people. My goal is to get to 5,000 listeners in the next couple of months, and I will love for you to be one of the amazing people who are sharing this podcast. All right. So the topic we're going to talk about today is marriage. Let's talk about marriage. I almost want to say married to ADHD, but I'm going to talk about both sides. And this is going to be another short and sweet episode, but because I really want us to think through it. A lot of the times, these episodes are really not a way to give you the entirety of the conversation, but a way to spark your interest and a way to say, what do I need to do to help my ADHD? Or what do I need to do to help someone I know who has ADHD? So, marriage. We all know marriage is hard. Marriage is very hard. However, did you know divorce is twice as high for people with ADHD than people who don't? Did you know that? Yeah, it is. And that's another sobering statistics when it comes to our ADHD, right? I talk a lot about the positive effects of ADHD, but there are some negative effects. A lot of the negative effect, believe it or not, is when you have untreated ADHD or unrealized ADHD, or if you're just in complete denial about your ADHD. So, if you're listening to this, I don't know why you're here. You may be that spouse who is married to someone who has ADHD, or you could be the spouse that has ADHD, right? You feel they are somehow able to focus, right? You're the spouse married to someone who has ADHD, and you're like, wait a minute, how come you are able to focus intensively on some random shit that has nothing to do with our family for hours, but ignore me or forget my birthday or forget Valentine's or forget to pick up that important paper I asked you to pick up? And I have to constantly be on you, okay? You feel alone all the time. The worst thing is that now you feel like you have another child. And of course, you're frustrated because listen, you didn't marry a child, you married a man. You married someone that was obsessed with you at one point, right? Because think about it, a lot of times during ADHD relationship, it's a whirlwind. It's a hyper focused relationship. They are all about you, right? And that's why you fell in love with them in the first place. And then now you're married and it seems like you don't even get half of that love, or you feel ignored, or you feel like you don't matter to them anymore, right? And to be honest, you now are taking a lot of the responsibility because you can't really depend on them sometimes. So, of course, you now feel resentful because you have to remember everything that needs to be done because they will remember nothing. So, you got to remember everything, okay? And I feel like when women have ADHD, it's still a little bit better. But can you imagine if your man has ADHD? It's so bad, right? Because as women, we are meant to rely on our, and yes, this is very sexist, I understand, but as a traditionalist, a lot of women, we see men, right? As you're my husband, I should be able to rely on you, right? When I'm sick, I should be able to rely that my husband will get shit done. Or when I am, you know, busy or I have lost my job, I should be able to rely on my husband, that my husband will go do what needs to be done to get this family going. And unfortunately, you just cannot rely on your husband when they have ADHD. It's a hard fact, it's a hard truth. But the problem comes though when they refuse to acknowledge their ADHD or they refuse to get help for their ADHD. That's when the problem comes in. Or maybe you are the spouse who have ADHD and you feel the constant judgment and nagging from your non ADHD spouse and you tend to retreat, right? Because you're just tired of them. You're tired of being told what to do. You are not a child. You are not a child, okay? Stop talking to me like a child, right? Or maybe you feel like, you know what? Yes, I liked you at one point, but right now I don't like you because you're always focusing on the negative things I don't do. And the negative things are little minute things that don't even matter to anybody. So I forgot the keys. Did I forget the child, right? And you have more of your value and time in what matters to you guys, but your spouse is not seeing that. And you feel like all they're nagging about is the little things that you really, frankly, don't care about, right? So you see how this dynamic can cause issue, right? And you're like, listen, I'm about to be part of that statistics. I'm about to be one of those people who are about to divorce my husband or my wife or whatever it is, or whoever is listening to this, right? And here's the thing, sometimes divorce is an answer. I tell people all the time, I'd rather you divorce than be in a toxic relationship. If you are in a toxic relationship or an abusive relationship, divorce may be the answer. But sometimes divorce is not the answer. Maybe the reason why you guys are fighting so much is because you have not really dealt with the underlying core problem. You have not dealt with the core issue affecting your marriage. So, as long as you keep putting a little band aid on it, every 3 months you guys have a blow up, you threaten divorce, and then you put a little band aid on it again, right? But as long as you keep putting a band-aid on it, you are going to continue the cycle of toxicity in your marriage. So here are some things I want you to think about. But before you even think about it, you have to decide, do we even acknowledge our ADHD or one of us is ADHD? If you guys cannot acknowledge that you have ADHD or accept the diagnosis you have ADHD or one of you does, there is no point even continuing with this podcast because I always preach that it is important that you have awareness of the situation. It's when you have awareness of the situation, you can actually change things associated with the situation. But when you stay in denial, it's going to be impossible to change because you don't even know what to change, right? So I always say the first thing you need to do is try to figure out if you're not diagnosed, but you've been listening to this and you think maybe you have it or you have a child that has it, it is best for you both to go get diagnosed. Once you're diagnosed, then I do recommend you getting a coach or a therapist or someone with ADHD experience that can actually walk you through what is ADHD and how ADHD is affecting your marriage. Because people underestimate the power of ADHD, right? A lot of the times when we've been taught about ADHD, it's always in school or when it comes to academics and achievements. And people don't realize the impact of ADHD in the academics of life, right? In the school of hard knock life. ADHD is all there. ADHD is there when you talk to friends. ADHD is there when you have emotional issue or dysregulation. ADHD is there when you're in your marriage. So it is everywhere. And the sooner you start to appreciate that, the better it is that you start working towards whatever goal you need to walk through to get to where you need to be. Okay? So, the first thing I want us to discuss is communication. When you are communicating with your spouse, like how are you communicating? Are you communicating from a point of front of judgmental, or are you communicating from a point of caring, right? I always say that the issue with ADHD in marriages, especially, is not the ADHD, it's the response to the ADHD. If your spouse, for example, says, um, I don't like the way you do something, the question is not, do you like what they said? The question is, how do you respond to what they say? Are you responding without even giving them a benefit of the doubt and going over this thought process of they not liking you, right? That's why they said what they said. Or are you sitting down and having a conversation with them and telling them why whatever it is they said hurt you so much? Okay, so how does emotion affect us? Okay, so we all know we have something called emotional dysregulation where we have so much heightened sense of not I don't want to say attack, but heightened sense of when people say things about us or they judge us, or it could even be something simple as, did you remember to close the garage? And it turns into, oh, he's judging me. He thinks I'm always forgetful, right? And you go into this roller coaster in your mind of like just feeling like the person who is in love with you is judging you when they were literally just asking a question. Because that's what normal people ask normal people, right? Especially if we know that, okay, maybe we do leave the garage open sometimes. So how can we do it, right? So I always say, always have this initial mindset of giving them the benefit of the doubt. Like, whatever it is, this person loved you at one point at least. Give them the benefit of the doubt and try to rewrite the story in your brain. What if they were coming from a good place? How are they seeing this? And then also walk in their shoe. If you were that person, how would you respond to this? A lot of times it will be exactly the same way they responded. Okay, so number one, communication. Being able to communicate effectively without nagging, and realize that when you guys communicate together with each other and not against each other, you are going to go far. The second one is managing your emotions, knowing that not everything is your fault, and also giving your spouse the benefit of the doubt. Number three is the tenacity and willing to do whatever it takes to make it work. Okay. So for us, we have that tenacity. That's one thing people with ADHD have, right? But not only do you have that tenacity, you just can't have it by just talking. You have to actually have it by seeking help and seeking people who will get you to the next level in your relationship, or seeking an ADHD trained coach for women and family to help you work through your marriage issues or help you get awareness of some of the things in your marriage that you may not even realize was ADHD related. Okay. So, so to get your marriage going, one, communication is important. Two, manage your emotion. Three, keep on with that tenacity and willing to do whatever it takes to make your marriage work. That being said, if you're in an abusive relationship or if you're with a narcissist, I do not think this is helpful for you. And the best thing you may actually need to do is leave. Number three, trust that your word is bond. And what does that mean? Whatever I say, your partner is counting on your word. So I recommend you always, whenever you tell them something, always trying to realize that okay, my word is like a social contract that I have signed. So I have to live up to my word. And while this is hard, like coaching can help you do that, help you learn how to live up to your word. And it starts with self trust, right? Are you able to trust yourself enough, right? That when you said you would do something, you will actually do it. So that is something that a lot of couples they have a hard time with because they're like they said they would do something, they don't do it. How can I even trust them? So in order for you to be able to trust them or they even trust themselves, they need to they need to have what I call self trust. Okay. And then the third thing is hope. I want to tell you that you have to keep hope alive. This kind of goes with that tenacity part. You have to keep hope alive. However, you also have to get formally diagnosed. If you have a child with ADHD or you've just been like trying to figure out if you have it or not, I recommend you just going to a professional. Some professionals so that are adult medicines would diagnose you. Some psychiatrists would diagnose you. If you want a more objective test, a neuropsychologist would actually diagnose you as well. So making sure that you seek diagnosis, and then when you understand your ADHD, I need you to seek both separate therapy and coaching and joint therapy and coaching treatments because you guys have to divide and conquer and focus on your strength. But if you don't know what your strength and your weakness is, how are you able to thrive in your relationship? Okay. Always focus on your strength and using that to work to betterment to betterment to make better your relationship. Okay. So that being said, I don't want you blaming your ADHD or lack of risk taking responsibility to your ADHD. I want you to actually say, in spite of my ADHD, I was able to do A, B, C, or D. So those are the main five things I want you to focus on when it comes to your marriage. The last thing I'm going to focus on, not really focus, but just wanted to mention because this would not be complete if we did not mention it. Most of you know that there's this strong association with women who have ADHD and narcissistic men. If you're in such relationship with a narcissistic, it may be better for you to leave temporarily the situation or get help in a way that helps them understand their narcissism. Okay, so while I am not a proponent for divorce, I don't stand for divorce. However, I do recommend that you seek the help needed for both you and your spouse. If you are in a relationship that's abusive or narcissism is involved or OCD is involved, then the better thing you may have to do is separate or divorce, depending on what state you're in. Okay? So, um, and I think that's all I was going to talk about. Again, I try not to go over 20, 30 minutes. And I want you to focus on, is my marriage doing well? And if it's not, what part is my ADHD contributing to this? Right? And if you cannot figure this out, then you need to see somebody. You need to see somebody who can help you unlock your ADHD. You need to see somebody who can help you unlock um, how your ADHD affects your marriage. Okay? So, and that's it for today's episode of LollieTasking. Okay? So, remember, we had an amazing conversation about ADHD and marriage. We talked about the importance of communication, taming our emotion, continue with our tenacity, trust that our word is bond, and knowing that there's hope for our marriage. I want you to look through all those and also reflect back on everything we talked about and say, what is that one thing I want to work on my marriage? Okay? And before we leave, I really just want to leave you with one of my favorite verses. It's 1 Corinthians 13:4-8. It says, love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks for hanging out with me on another amazing episode. I hope you stay intentional ahead. Don't be a stranger. If you have any questions or want to talk more about this topic extensively, please join our Facebook group to continue the conversation called Thrive in Spite of ADHD. The link is in the show notes. And don't forget to follow us on our IG at LollieTasker or email us at hello@lollytasking.com. And please, please, please leave a review, and you may just get a shout out on our next or future episodes. Till next time, remember, you can do it too with some planning, a little bit of balance, and a dash
Thanks
of determination.
For hanging out with us on
This
another
is
episode of
LollieTasking
with
ADHD.
If you like what you've heard today, I would love for you to click the subscribe button, rate, and leave a great review, in addition to sharing with your friends. Your review allows visibility and also allows other amazing women to find this podcast. Also, if you have any questions or topics you would like for us to discuss, please contact me via direct message on Instagram at LollieTasker or email us at hello@lollytasking.com. Till next time, this is LollieTasking with ADHD.